Well, thank you all for coming. My name is Jeff Sass, but as Lloyd's kids like to call me Jeff Sass. Say it fast, they enjoy it. It always got a giggle out of them when they were young. And it's a pleasure to be here at SuperCon with you, and of course with Troma co-founder and director of these films, Lloyd Kaufman.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff Sass. And the Super Tromette Dementia is here to glamorize the attendance. And Dementia is going to go to be guarding the, it's a full house here, so Dementia will be guarding the door to make sure
no one leaves.
No more, nobody leaves. Thank you, Dementia.
So once upon a time, actually over 20 years ago, I worked for Troma, and I worked there for 7.5 years, which is pretty remarkable. That's up there with the tenure of a Tromite, isn't it? So
that's
most last about 2 days.
Dog years, right? If you were measuring.
That's like dead in dog years.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, yes.
So through some miracle of fate, I stayed there for 7.5 years. And it was really an exciting, formative time, both for Troma and for myself. During that period of time, we produced Troma's War, Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD, Toxic Avenger 2 and 3, The Last Temptation of Toxie, Classic Nukem High 2 and 3, Subhumanoid Meltdown, and acquired many other great films like Surf Nazis Must Die and Rabid Grannies and Redneck Zombies. So it was really a great time at Troma. And one of the other accomplishments we did during that time was we took this hideously deformed creature of superhuman size and strength that was the star of a relatively violent R-rated movie with children's heads being crushed and the like, and miraculously turned that affable character into a Saturday morning cartoon show, The Toxic Crusaders. So that was a pretty amazing feat that the Troma team accomplished during my tenure there, and it was a lot of fun to work on all of those projects. So here I am 20 some odd years later, and since leaving Troma, I've had the opportunity to be a CEO, I've been a COO, I'm currently a CMO, so I've spent a lot of time in the C-suite, and I have to say, if I'm honest, I couldn't have had any of the success I've had in the C-suite if I hadn't had the experience at Troma making B movies. So it's really been great. So I recently
Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome.
Very, very nice.
I got my MBA comes from Professor Kaufman here. So I wrote a book recently published called Everything I Know About Business and Marketing I Learned from the Toxic Avenger. I could have said I learned it from Lloyd Kaufman, but I think more people would be interested in hearing from the Toxic Avenger. Sorry, Lloyd.
He's better looking too.
I titled it aptly, and the subtitle, of course, is One Man's Journey to Hell's Kitchen and Back. And it was a great time, and the book actually is a legitimate, if I do say so myself, it is a legitimate business and marketing book with real marketing tips that can be applied to any industry, not just the film industry, but it's framed around the lessons I learned working with Lloyd and working on all these movies and working for Troma. So it's a really fun, funny, different kind of business book. So in today's panel, I'm going to read a few chapters from the book and then also talk to Lloyd about it so he can tell you whether my version... Oh no, what's that? What's that?
Oh no, speaking of marketing, ladies and gentlemen. Oh no, it's the Toxic Avenger. Look out. Oh no. Oh,
my hero, my mentor was a monster.
Moptor.
Yes.
Wow, Toxic. Saves the day.
Yes, thank you,
Toxic. Be careful behind you. There's a projector. Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Toxic. Amazing.
Excellent. See, everyone should have a mentor in business, and my mentor was literally a monster.
A dementor.
Yes, he was my demented mentor and his partner, Dementia.
Dementia, come back.
So anyway.
Thank you, Dementia.
So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to read a couple of chapters from the book, and we'll talk about them with Lloyd, and we'll save time to answer any questions from you. So I want to start really at the beginning with the first time I actually met Lloyd and Michael. So this is chapter 3, and it's called Meet the Moguls. There were 3 stories above the street-level storefront, and countless stories within those 3 stories. On the first floor, actually the second floor of the building, but the first floor of the Troma offices, after climbing the narrow stairs, one entered the main office landing. To use the word reception area would be disingenuous, as visitors were not received as much as they were ignored, and once noticed, most likely put to work. 2 uncomfortable and mismatched office chairs were against the wall to your left. Before you was a beat-up desk, most likely occupied by a heavily tattooed and pierced young person of indiscriminate gender who had been, quote, working for Troma for anywhere from 2 hours to 2 days. If they had survived for longer than 2 days, they would no longer be assigned to the front desk, but would probably have been reassigned to head up theatrical sales or edit trailers on one of the flatbeds on the 4th floor, or given some other critically important task that they were grossly ill-prepared and underqualified for. Eventually, some screaming and yelling would emanate from behind the smoke glass walls of the office diagonally opposite the reception desk. The yelling was often followed by the slamming of phone receivers, the old heavy plastic kind with cords and such, and perhaps the sound of books, magazines, and film cans being tossed across the room and into the walls. If you were lucky, the screaming and yelling would get the attention of the heavily tattooed and pierced young person of indiscriminate gender who would finally notice your presence. "Oh," he, she, it would say, "may I help you? I'm here to see Lloyd and Michael." And before he, she, it could respond further, Lloyd himself would come bursting out of the office, screaming like a banshee. "What is it, asshole time?"
No, that is...
Blasting past.
That's called fake news, ladies and gentlemen. Fake news.
Lloyd would, bursting out of the office, screaming like a banshee, "What is it, asshole time?" He'd blast past you as if you were the Invisible Man himself. Lloyd would light into the reception person as a lion attacks its prey, tearing them apart, psychological limb by psychological limb, until they either quit, broke down in tears, or simply accepted their fate and moved on to the next outrageous task Lloyd would assign to them. And then his attention would drift to his unannounced guest, and zap, Kaufman transforms into the charming, almost delightful, intelligent, and affable Yale graduate, albeit a slightly scruffy one, you may have imagined. "Come in, come in." Their office was a cluttered and messy room, large enough for 2 desks facing each other, with a sizable chasm between. Michael to the left and Lloyd to the right, set up for an intentional daily literal face-off, staring at each other with no privacy. By design, they could overhear each other's every phone call and chime in from across the room. By design, they could argue over the smallest minutiae and yell and scream at each other with freedom and abandon whenever their muse manifests itself. It was manufactured mayhem, and for them, it worked. I sat in the aisle between them, shifting back and forth to face the speaker of the moment. It was funny. It was fun. We all sort of got along. I explained about Satori and asked whether their video and TV syndication plans were. They ignored me and asked if I'd like a tour of the Troma building. Of course I would. And up the stairs we went, starting at the top, the editing rooms. The 4th floor of the Troma building was arguably where the magic happened. That was chapter 3.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, that was beautiful. That was so beautiful.
Does it remind you of yourself?
I'm sky high and can't tranquilize her. As far as I know, I'm on the 4th floor.
No,
that's horrible. I was a terrible person.
There was a lot of screaming. There's another chapter about screaming, but
You people know me? Yeah.
To know me is to
It's
like
called
me.
manic depressive. That's basically what it is.
Well, I'll continue with chapter 4. And again, the chapters are short, which takes me into upstairs to the editing rooms. And this chapter is entitled Trailer Trash. Having huffed and puffed my way up to the 4th floor, I entered the editing lair. Here there were a few seemingly ancient Moviola flatbed film editing consoles. Remember, this was more or less pre-digital and still in the age of film. Editing involved literally cutting and splicing strips of film and magnetic sound tapes in an attempt to make something cohesive. A film editor works with prints of the raw footage that was shot during production. When the edited film is finalized and approved by the director, it gets sent to a negative cutter, someone skilled in the art of carefully and cleanly handling the camera negatives. The negative cutter conforms the original film negative to the approved edit, and that cut negative, when married to optical effects and a fully mixed soundtrack, becomes the master from which all the prints are made that eventually end up in theaters. This was 1985. The first non-linear video editing systems were just being demonstrated and were several years away from being put to any practical use by filmmakers. And anyway, Troma was decidedly old school in those days, and not much has changed since then. As I took my tour with Lloyd, he showed me a work in progress, a new trailer for the intentionally gross, soon to become legendary, Troma epic, The Toxic Avenger. The film had enjoyed some early notoriety, but had yet to find its niche in B-movie history as the so-called cult classic it remains today. I don't think I had actually seen The Toxic Avenger at the time, but its reputation had preceded it, and I had a pretty good inkling as to what it was all about. My impression, from reviews and word of mouth, was that it was fairly gross and somewhat sophomoric, yet somehow charming and disarming because of an underlying sweetness and humor. Lloyd showed me the trailer in progress, which was fairly graphic and straightforward, and ended with a particularly dry and emotionless tagline, "A different kind of hero." Lloyd asked me what I thought. I answered honestly, meh. My understanding was that part of the movie's appeal was that it had an element of comedy to it, despite the graphic, arguably tasteless violence. I felt the trailer in the end fell flat, largely because the tagline, "A different kind of hero," didn't really convey how Toxie was different, or the movie for that matter. It was boring, it was plain. "Well," said Lloyd. Well.
Say well. You're lying.
Fuck.
"Well," said Lloyd, "what tagline would you use instead?" I thought about it a moment and asked a question. I had done my homework and read up on the film. I knew that much of it had been filmed across the Hudson River from Manhattan, and that the locale had been worked into the story as Toxie's home. Like any good New Yorker, I also knew the various slurs and aspersions we'd lovingly cast at our Garden State neighbor. So thinking fast, I responded, "The Toxic Avenger is from New Jersey, right?" Yeah, said Lloyd.
Yeah.
So I continued, I'd use the tagline, "The first superhero from New Jersey."
That's history. That's film history, ladies and gentlemen. No joke.
The first superhero from New Jersey. Something that is an immediate wink to the audience, letting them know that there's a hint of comedy here too. Lloyd paused a moment, in deep thought. Then he repeated my suggestion aloud, quietly, like a freshly assigned mantra. "The first superhero from New Jersey." "That's great. Can we use it?" "Sure," I said. The trailer was changed, the posters too, and like that, Toxie became the first superhero from New Jersey. And that was the first of many things I would end up writing for Troma. But there's a lesson here. The lesson here, of course, and one that I have used again and again since, is to share your ideas. Don't be afraid to give someone a good idea or help them without expecting anything from it. Holding back your idea because they are precious, or because they are valuable, or because you're afraid someone will steal them is just a way to hold yourself back. This is especially true when you're trying to get a job or a new client. Give them a tangible taste of what you are really capable of. Give them a sampling of your valuable ideas that they can use and benefit from, whether they hire you or not. More often than not, if your ideas are good, you will get hired or get the client. If you allow your best ideas to be turned into secrets, you may never see your ideas put to use. There's also a great lesson here from Lloyd's behavior. He listened. Even though it was probably he who came up with the original tagline, "A different kind of hero," Lloyd was open to change and to new ideas, regardless of where they came from. Who was this sass guy anyway? He had just met me for the first time. I had no track record to speak of, and yet when Lloyd heard a good idea, a better choice, he was ready and willing to discard what he had already done and make a change that he perceived to be for the better. And it cost money to change the trailer and the posters and the flyers, but it was the right move. So how open are you to accepting suggestions and new ideas?
I actually wanted Jeff not to, I didn't want to just remake the trailer, I wanted him to totally reshoot the film.
And play Toxie.
Yes. And
But
be me.
no, but it really was. It was interesting to me because I never expected that. I mean, literally, I had met them for the first time. We're walking around the office talking. Lloyd shows me something, asked what I thought. I give him an opinion, and he says, "Oh, okay, we'll do that. We'll use that." So, and I think that's really important in business and in life is you have to not be afraid to share your ideas. Someone else might have thought, well, I can come up with a better tagline, but I'm not going to tell them. Why should I help them out? And that doesn't get you anywhere. When you have an idea, share it. And that's how your ideas get used. If your ideas are too precious and you keep them as a secret, nothing will ever be done with them. And in the end, an idea by itself is not special. It's the execution of that idea. It's the use of that idea. And that's really what happened in this instance.
And that's why if you go to YouTube, you can go to Troma Movies on YouTube. We have a channel where we're giving away all of our movies, all of them, even the Toxic Avenger. You can get them all for free to thank our fans for staying with us for 40 years.
Wow.
And it pays. Don't worry. What Jeff says is true. Art should be shared, and ideas. That's why net neutrality should be supported on the internet too.
Absolutely. So how many people here have seen or heard of Redneck Zombies? All right, great. So that's become...
That's frightening.
That's become a Troma classic, and I thought you might enjoy another chapter from the book, which really tells the story of how Redneck Zombies ended up becoming a Troma film. Excellent. So let me find that page.
This is the original. Sorry. The original. This was an original marketing. What do you call this?
A bandana.
Handkerchief, please. Banana. Banana is something else.
A snot rag.
Oh, Jeff, that's
That's the
disgusting.
technical.
You
Look,
can take the boy out of the Troma.
you're
cannot take the Troma
you're out on
out
a
of the
date
boy.
with you're out on a date with your honey. Your nose begins to get funny. You think it's runny. No, wait. You're out on a date with your honey. Your nose begins to get runny. You think it's funny, but it's not. You can take me out there. Anyway, so after that, I will read chapter 32, The Stalking Dead. One needed to stoop no lower than the stoops of the steps of the Troma building to find the next gaggle of gore, and at the time, one of the very first shot-on-video productions to gain professional distribution on VHS. Yes, I am referring to the aptly titled hillbilly horror extravaganza, Redneck Zombies. To beat the traffic into Manhattan from my humble abode in Rockland County, I started my commute early, and I would often be the first to arrive at the office, giving me the honor of unlocking and sliding open the rolling steel gate that completely covered the entryway to the Troma building. One particular brisk morning, I stepped over two well-bundled up young lads huddled together on the single stoop beneath the steel-enclosed entrance. I assumed they were members of the neighborhood homeless. This was Hell's Kitchen after all. And so I did my best not to disturb them as I removed the bulky master lock and rolled the gate up into its well. Well, they did awaken and gazed up at me through glassy red eyes and gruff, unshaven faces. They looked the part, but seemed to be a bit young to be homeless already. One of them, the chubbier of the two, coughed and smiled and spoke softly to me. "Is this the Troma building?" "It is," I replied, surprised that such street urchins would actually know where they are. This page turning down. "Cool," he muttered back at me, elbowed his companion. "This is it." Duty called, and I also had to go to work. So I reattached the lock in its resting place, opened the door, and headed upstairs to my desk. As the rest of the Troma team arrived over the next hours, a few folks mentioned the two dudes sitting outside the front door. Surprised that they were still hanging around now that the day was underway, I went back downstairs to confront them. "Hey guys, this is a business. You can't just sit here all day." "We know it's a business. It's Troma," the bigger guy exclaimed. He seemed to have woken up a bit since our last encounter, and there was a certain spark in his eye. We came all the way from Maryland to meet Lloyd Kaufman, and we slept here all night. Right, Ed? He was invoking his shivering associate, who just grunted. Needless to say, I was surprised to find out that these seemingly bumbling bums were actually camped out in our dirty doorway intentionally. I muttered, do you have an appointment? No, dude. We didn't have a phone number to call, so we just took the bus down from Maryland and walked here from Port Authority. Of course, it was the more rotund dude doing the talking. His cohort, Ed, was clearly the quiet type. The pair's spokesman continued, we came all the way here to show this to Lloyd. And he reached into his knapsack to pull out a couple of well-worn plastic 3/4-inch pneumatic videotapes. It's our film, dude. We made it. Shot entirely on video. A full-length feature film, totally inspired by Lloyd and Troma. We love Troma. We're huge Troma fans. Do you work for Troma? I do. That's why I stepped over you this morning to open the office door. I work here, and I've got to get back to work now. And I turned to head up the stairs. Dude! The pleading in his voice stopped me. He continued. Dude, so can we see him? Can we meet Lloyd? It'll only take a minute. We just want to shake his hand, tell him how much he means to us, and give him our film. He's got to see it. We made it for him. We made it because of him, because of Troma. Behind the windburnt rosy cheeks, beneath the unshaven, unkempt face, there was a genuine sincerity in the kid's demeanor that touched me. And the other kid, Ed, the silent one, he might as well have been a zombie, just gawking at us lifelessly. Little did I know. I'm Pericles, Perry Lunas, and this is my partner, Ed Bishop. We came all the way from I know, you came all the way from Maryland and you slept here all night. Did you really sleep here all night? I only had to look at them for the answer. They had definitely spent the night sleeping on the cold stone stoop at the gateway to Tromaville. Let me see what I can do. Wait here. And we all chuckled at the irony of that statement. Waiting was all they could do and all they had done. Even Ed smiled. Back upstairs, I waited for there to be a brief pause in the yelling and screaming coming from behind the closed door to Lloyd and Michael's office. I knocked and then opened the door enough to stick my head in to see the pages of what once must have been a screenplay strewn about the office, typed papers scattered across the floor and on both of the moguls' desks. They had just completed a productive creative meeting. What is it, Sass? Lloyd bellowed. Did you notice two guys sitting on the stoop when you came in this morning? The homeless guys? They were asleep, so I let them be. Yeah, well, they're not homeless. They're stalkers. Well, I mean fans. They're fans. They've been hanging out all night and they want to meet with you. Fuck that, grumped Lloyd. Okay, should I tell them to leave? They made a film they want to show you. Shot it on video. Lloyd asked, what's it called? I didn't ask. Well, have them come up and sit. You'll meet with them? No, but let them get in out of the cold and warm up inside Tromaville and find out what the name of their film is. So I invited Perry and Ed to enter Tromaville and come up the stairs and sit in the two mismatched chairs against the wall behind the so-called reception desk. Can we meet with Lloyd? Perry perked up from his new indoor perch. I don't know. Hey, what's your film called anyway? Perry smiled genuinely. Redneck Zombies. It's truly disgusting and funny too. I did all the effects myself. Ed's my producing partner. There's some seriously gross shit in it. Lloyd will love it. Several hours later, the producing pair from Maryland were still sitting quietly in their chairs. They truly didn't seem to mind, happy to be in from the cold and able to get whatever small sniff of the ode to Troma they could from their front row seats in the corner of the office. Lloyd came out of his office a few times and walked by them, paying them little notice. They were thrilled nonetheless. At some point, I did tell Lloyd the clever title of their film. We both agreed it was a good title. Finally, sometime in the late afternoon, Lloyd invited the two patient and persistent purveyors of a perverse film into the inner sanctum. We all gathered at the center of Lloyd and Michael's office, dragging in some extra chairs to accommodate the unscheduled crowd. Let's see it, Lloyd dived in, bypassing the usual niceties. Your movie, let's see it. I hope it's as good as the title. Something zombies, right? Redneck Zombies, Perry proudly stated as he withdrew the tapes from his pack.
Yay!
Lloyd popped one of the tapes into the machine connected to a 19-inch TV on top of a tall metal filing cabinet. The cathode ray tube popped to life with a close-up of human intestines being chomped on by an overweight zombie in a flannel shirt, overalls, and a red trucker hat. The fact that it was shot on video and not film gave the gore a certain je ne sais quoi that Lloyd found quite appealing. "This is great," he commented. Perry and Ed beamed. And from that humble beginnings, a great business collaboration began. The patience of the boys from Maryland paid off, and their dream of having their feisty little film distributed by Troma came true. We made a deal to take on Redneck Zombies in all its visceral video glory, despite the many challenges a shot-on-video production would create. It was essentially considered undistributable at first. Even for a schlocky horror flick, the value for a meaningful home video release was created by a small theatrical release. And back then, the technology for video-to-film transfers was still very crude and expensive. Yet there was something strangely appealing about Ed and Perry's movie. And Redneck Zombies was a great, marketable title, right up there with Rabid Grannies. So with a nervous, sweaty handshake and a modest advance guarantee, Redneck Zombies became the latest addition to the growing Troma library. Mission accomplished, Ed quietly took the next bus back to Maryland. Perry, on the other hand, had become quite comfortable living on our front stoop and decided to stay. He continued to stalk us, or hang around Tromaville, until finally Lloyd offered him a job as we geared up for Troma's war. Perry, as it turns out, is an extremely talented and hardworking filmmaker and went on to handle a wide range of duties in Troma's War, Toxic Avenger 2 and 3, and Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD. Perry served us well in front of and behind the cameras as an actor, stunt person, effects artist, second unit director, camera person, and on at least one occasion, hired heavy, knocking out an unruly production assistant with a single well-placed punch. There wasn't anything Perry wasn't willing to do for the cause of making a film. Remember the close-up of a mouthful of live worms at the beginning of Kabuki Man? That was Perry's mouth. And just letting the worms squirm around in his cheeks wasn't enough for Perry. He had to chew and swallow a few for authenticity. That was Perry Lunas. Perry is the real deal. The lesson. So I learned a lot from Perry and the Redneck Zombie story. Persistence and patience are often the key to the payoff, and you have to believe in yourself before anyone else will believe in you. Perry and Ed were believers. They made Redneck Zombies with a clear mission in mind. It would become a Troma Team release. They never stopped believing that, and they were more than happy to do whatever it took, even sleeping on the cold, hard reality of a Hell's Kitchen stoop, just to demonstrate their unwavering belief in said mission. Granted, things don't always work out the way you want just because you believe, but your chances are certainly better if you are truly committed to your cause. There's also a lesson in Lloyd's willingness to see talent and good in something regardless of the wrapper it shows up in. At the time we acquired Redneck Zombies, there was literally no such thing as a film shot only on video getting any sort of mainstream distribution. Perry and Ed's little film was the first. Lloyd knew it was good and deserved to be seen, especially by Troma fans, so he was willing to give it a shot when others would have said no solely on the fact that it was not shot on film. But good is good, and Troma knows its audience. Redneck Zombies has enjoyed continued success as a Troma classic ever since, and today, nobody thinks twice about a film shot entirely on video. It's okay to be the first. Just because something has not been done before doesn't mean it can't break through and be successful. If Lloyd and Troma had stuck to the conventional wisdom of the time, we'd never have touched a film that was not shot on film, and Redneck Zombies may never have found its place in film gore history.
But Jeff Sass, ladies and gentlemen, beautifully done. Yeah, great wordsmith.
So,
And the writer of Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD. We wrote that script together.
yes.
Wow.
Yes, and then there's some chapters in the book. I'm not going to read any more of the book. I'm not going to bore you with my voice.
No, it was great.
But there are chapters about the
It's a
making
very
of
good
Kabuki
book.
Man.
Great.
But as I hope you saw, and then I'll
Very good introduction to your book, I believe.
Yes,
if I'm not
the
mistaken.
forward is written by Lloyd himself.
Oh,
Yes.
I heard it's.
In fact,
it's very talented.
what's funny is I had a few complaints about the book cover because people were asking me why is Lloyd's name bigger than my name as the author, which in retrospect was a huge mistake. I mean.
Because Lloyd is a narcissist. Thank you, Jeff.
Yes. But the idea, as you saw hopefully from a couple of those chapters, is while on the one hand I'm sharing these stories of my experiences at Troma, what I'm really trying to do is extract meaning from it, extract lessons that you can apply to your business, no matter what it is, not just filmmaking, but other things. And there's a lot more of that in the book. So I hope you'll check it out. It's available on Amazon.com. You could go to toxicavenger.marketing, www.toxicavenger.marketing. That'll take you right to my Amazon page. I'll also be selling and signing books here right after the panel, and of course down at the Troma booth today and tomorrow. So thank you.
What number is that, Troma?
That is
Jeff
booth
says?
number 323 to 325.
Thank you.
Quite a large space there.
Very nice.
And there's some great Tromabilia on sale, and Lloyd is there to sign things.
And the Troma Movies on YouTube. Troma Movies, that's the channel, and there's 400 free movies, many of which are not. All our classics, all the Toxic Avengers and the Kabukis and everything is there. But there are a lot of buried treasure that you have never seen anywhere. And check it out. If you subscribe, you'll get an email and when we put new stuff up.
Yep. And I
Back
think,
to you, Jeff.
Yes. So I think what we'll do for the next few minutes, we still have a little bit of time. Lloyd has a couple of trailers he wants to show.
No, it's, why don't we?
You
How
want
much
to do a
time?
Q&A first? We have time, so we would save the trailers for the end?
It's up to you, but we should probably.
Yeah, let's
have
so open up for Q&A. So we want to open up any questions for myself
By
or
the way,
Lloyd.
let me just say, I've read that book, and it's very, very good, excellent, and the lessons there can be applied to any profession.
Well, I mean,
Any
the
activity.
reality is I worked for Troma, over 20 years ago. I left Troma in 1994. Fun fact, how many people here like Guardians of the Galaxy? Okay, you should buy my book to thank me because when I quit Troma in 1994, Lloyd hired a kid to replace me. That kid was James Gunn.
But
right?
you were
So-
much more talented.
No,
you were
believe
much
me.
more talented.
I'm standing here with you at Florida SuperCon. Where's James right now? All right, come on. He's
I don't know
extremely
what happened to
talented.
him, but you're a success.
But in all seriousness,
You have a book.
one. That's right. Yes, I have a book.
What does James Gunn have? Come on.
I killed a tree for you. Yeah, there is a Kindle version for those people who are opposed to killing trees.
Yay.
So no
Nice.
worries. Yeah.
Tree killers.
Yeah. Well, one could argue if I hadn't quit Troma, maybe Guardians of the Galaxy wouldn't be what
That
it
is very
today.
true.
Because
That is very
James
true.
credits Troma for his start in film, but somehow he would have found his way. He's
My
pretty
partner Michael Hurst turned down Madonna for
That's right.
the first turn on. He didn't think she was right, and he probably did her a major favor. If Madonna had done the first turn on, probably the atoms and the planets would have aligned differently.
Not only did he turn her down, but my recollection is she was extremely persistent.
Yes.
Really wanted the
Yeah.
part. Like she made it hard for him to turn her down.
She made her own costume for the audition.
But I hope you will consider taking a look at the book, and thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
And don't forget to recycle those papers and bottles later. It's very important. Thank you, Jeff Sass. Jeff Sass, ladies and gentlemen, unbelievable. The Toxic Avengers and Super Troma Dementia. Super Troma Dementia. Thank you.